What's up, world? It's your boy, Mike Muse. Welcome to the Conversation, the Mike Muse Show. I'm so excited to be in conversation with you. I love my next guest. He's a recurring guest. He's a dear, 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 dear friend. He's a secret weapon for me for so many different reasons. I am obsessed with this man when I didn't even know him, and I am even honored to call him a dear friend. He is exactly who he is in the public eye as he is in private when he's just kicking it with friends and family, and it's so rare you find that in this space, and particularly with people who are so well accomplished, so well decorated, in the Rock and Roll Hall of Fame, Grammy Award winning, on all the music and Grammy boards you ever want to meet, has worked with all your favorites. He is your favorites fave. I guess they say on social media, Jonah, he is the father to all the sons. Is that the shady things that people say? I'm talking to my Gen X producer here. She will help me with the lingo that I need, but he's that, whatever that word is and phrase. He's that guy. He's that deal. Mr. Jimmy Jam. How are you, sir?
I'm wonderful, man. After that introduction, how could I not be?
I mean, seriously, how could we not be after we've
That's
been
right.
rocking right here to Because of Love, and I'm just going to go right into it. Jimmy, we talked a lot, and I have never been selfish with this. I've always been altruistic when it comes to you, and what I've always wanted to talk about all the projects and all the great things you're working on, but God damn it, I want my time with Janet Jackson. And so this conversation is going to be very heavy Janet Jackson.
That's fine.
Is that okay with you?
That's absolutely fine.
We're going to get to all the great things, the documentaries, the relief funds, all the good fun stuff. But we were rocking right now, audience, before the interview started with Because of Love by Janet Jackson. And that Janet album is one of my favorite albums of all time. I remember actually that Rolling Stones cover with the hands over her breast.
Yep.
I think I had that poster in my room. That I've been to every Janet Jackson concert, and I think Because of Love made me want to be a Janet Jackson dancer. Clearly,
Okay,
I have two
okay.
left feet, which is why I'm a radio show host and I talk on TV and not on tour with Janet. But that bridge, when you hit, I mean, I just think I'm Fred Astaire. I
All right.
literally think it's like Fred Astaire meets Michael Jackson. Jimmy, indulge me, my friend. Talk to me about the construction of Because of Love, because in the studio, I feel like y'all just had to be dancing.
Yeah. No, Because of Love was really cool, but it was funny because I'm just listening to it play, and the thing that I remember loving so much about it, there's always the obvious things about songs that you hear, and then there's the things that nobody hears but you hear, you know, and everybody has that in songs. Like there's always a favorite part of a certain song that you go, you know, that part that goes and nobody knows what you're talking about. So this will be mine on Because of Love. There's a harmony in Because of Love that the melody of the song, and excuse me because I don't sing,
Yeah.
but you know the harmony or the melody is because of love I know you better, right?
Because of love we are together.
right?
Because of love.
Right. But there's a harmony in there that goes because of love I know you better.
Hey.
Because of love I love that harmony,
Yeah.
because that harmony is what makes that song funky.
Ah.
Without that harmony, it's a very kind of, I mean, it is a very happy song anyway.
Yeah.
But it's like overly happy. It's
Oh,
like
it's
too
bright.
much. It's like too much whipped cream on the pie or something. But that one little harmony in that song makes it like it grounds it.
And isn't like because of
Oh, the little stutters, Yeah, I love doing those.
I feel like Janet showed out with her vocals. I feel like
Yeah.
you really pushed her vocals forward with that.
Well,
when
those-
she goes up into that falsetto.
Oh, the shoot.
It's rare we see
Oh,
her
yeah.
go up that falsetto. I would say, I don't know if it's rare, but I feel like that's the first time we saw her really go up in her vocal range that she has. I feel like you really pushed the vocals forward.
It was, that record was so much, just overall, the whole album, that whole Janet album was so much about trusting each other. We were in such a good place. If you think about it, the Control record, we were still learning each other.
Yeah.
The trust in that. Rhythm Nation was obviously a huge breakthrough. But by the time we got to the Janet album, there was the pressure of, you know, the fact that she had just signed this huge contract. I think it was the biggest contract
It was Virgin, wasn't it?
Yeah, with Virgin and that whole thing. But we felt very
At the time, her and Madonna were always going back and forth with the biggest contract.
Exactly.
At the time,
yeah. But it was huge, and there was a lot of, you know, expectation in that, and we just didn't really feel that in the studio. And I think we felt we just trusted each other. So like when I'd say to her, you do, I mean, she always did all the backgrounds on her records, which we always loved because we love the fact of when you hear a Janet record, you're literally hearing Janet. Yeah. It's not Janet with some background singers in that. It's like you're hearing her voice across everything. And that was the thing about that. So because of Love, all of those little parts of shoot, and all of that, and the shoot, and all that, it was just because we could experiment and just have fun. It was just a trust. And she just trusted that it was going to sound, a lot of times she would go, I don't think that's going to sound right.
Yeah.
On this record, she never said, I don't think that's going to sound right. She just did it, and then she just kind of laugh and go, okay, I know you're going to fix it. And I say, yeah, I'll fix it.
In that album, if I'm not mistaken, she does that interlude where it says, Jimmy, are you recording this?
Yes,
yeah.
exactly.
Jimmy, I'm a fan. I'm telling you, I've been a fan. But Jimmy, you didn't answer the question. Thank you for the story. But was it a big party in the studio when this song comes on? Because this song makes you want to dance. And if I'm not mistaken, Jimmy Jam, I feel like this song was either one of the last songs of the concert. I feel like this was when she waved to the crowd song, right?
Well, she did. I know it was her New Year's Eve song when she did New Year's Eve for MTV. Yeah. I remember that's the song that they played. Was it a party in the studio? No, because it was kind of it was one of the last songs I think we did for the record because we felt we needed another up-tempo song. And I think it was more like, let's just get this song done. I just remember it was more, not a grind, but it was definitely not the way the song sounds.
Oh,
and
wow.
I remember telling her as she sang it, smile when you're singing it, because it was a grind. And I remember when she first started singing it, it sounded like, you sound like you're working too hard. You have to smile. Yes, yes.
She's like, Jimmy, if we don't got it now, we don't got it.
Yes. So I do feel that about the song. But no, I mean,
she actually says that too. I think another interlude. She was just like, "Do you think that people are gonna like it?" I forgot.
Yes.
Is it the Janet album?
Yeah. No, that wasn't the Janet album. That was.
Oh, was that the Velvet Rope?
It might have been Velvet Rope.
It was Velvet Rope.
I think that was Velvet Rope. Yeah. But so no, I mean, but the thing was, is those types of things that happened in the studio, those kind of conversations and those types of things. I think it was important to put those on the record because it made it authentically Janet.
She was the only one who did that.
Yeah.
Well, she was the best to do that.
Well, we always would capture everything and then we'd leave it on there, and like her little giggles or her little mistakes, we would leave in the records. To me, that always made those records very personal. Made those records feel like you were in the studio with us.
Yeah.
You know. So I love that the record comes off like it's a party.
Oh,
because that's what it should come off like.
Bro.
But in the actual making of it, nah.
Well, then tell me about If, because If is such a. Here's the thing. And I'm gonna keep. I think a lot of Janet fans. I think a lot of them, Velvet Rope is like their favorite Janet album. But for me, I just think Janet was for me like the favorite of the Janet albums. Yeah. I think Janet's legacy was cemented in terms of her separating herself as a mega pop star that will be around forever and turn into an icon because. Which I'm going to get to, you guys defined sexy R&B. Like R&B for me was not done the way it was done until we got to Anytime, Any Place. You start seeing like the club songs for Throb. You start seeing like the two steps since I'm from the Midwest in Michigan, like Because of Love. You can see us doing the Detroit Ballroom, to that. Chicago two-step to Because of Love. A little fast shuffle, but you can still see it happening. But then you saw If began to really cement her doing these monumental dance moves. Now, obviously, Rhythm Nation with the 5-4-3, but then there was something about that move with the jerk, with the If. I think that's why I think the Janet album just solidified that. Talk to us about how you guys thought about If, because it was such a perfect genre bend of rock, funk, a little bit of house, I think a little bit somewhere in there, and R&B.
So If was interesting because every time we would start a new record, we'd always get new equipment. We'd get new keyboards, new drum machines, and that. I mean, that was just kind of always our thing. And those instruments would always inspire ideas. And I remember, for gearheads out there, the song If is actually, people think it's a guitar. It's not a guitar.
That's
it's actually
not a
keyboard.
Guitar?
No, it's a keyboard.
Shut up. I thought it was a guitar this whole time.
No, everybody does. So sorry to break people's illusions.
Wait, we need some breaking news sounds right now.
It's a keyboard called a JD800. It's a Roland keyboard, and I think it's called a JD800. And it had, as you flip through the presets, there was one that sounded like a rock guitar.
Yeah.
And I just liked the way that sounded, and so I put a beat in. I just kind of did the feel of the gang, 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 right. And anyway, that just ended up becoming what the song was. Now, the interesting thing about it, before she had sang the song, I was working on that track, and a couple of the guys, Jordan Harris and Jeff Aroff, who were the heads of Virgin at the time, they were coming through Minneapolis, and they wanted to hear what we were working on because they had just paid all this money, and they hadn't heard anything, right? So I remember I told Janet, I said, hey, they want to hear something, and she said, just play on whatever you're working on. I said, okay, cool. So I had the track to If. I put the track to If on, and then when it was done, I just kind of turned around and looked at them, and they were just like, okay. And so they walked out. So in their minds, that was the single. Was If. That was the single, right? So fast forward now, we're done with making the record. Everything's done. The last record we do is a song called New Agenda with Chuck D, right?
I love New Agenda.
Okay. The record company now has made If the single. In our minds, the first single is That's the Way Love Goes.
Yeah.
So we play the song for Chuck D. We play both songs for Chuck D, and we say, which one is the single? And he goes, well, that If, man, he said, that sounds like a big video, man. I can see Janet, blah, blah, blah. And as he's saying that, Janet's looking at me like, I'm like, but then he goes, but that other song? He said, that other song is like when Sade releases a record. You just kind of slip it out there, and then people go, oh, wait, is that a new Sade record? And I'm looking at Janet like, that's the way we need to go. We need to not go bigger, 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 bigger. We've gone big. And your last song was Love Will Never Do.
That's so true.
Which to me sets the tone for That's the Way Love Goes. Something more sensual and that. And anyway, our argument won, and that became the first single and was huge. So while If was a huge record, That's the Way Love Goes set the tone for what the album was going to be.
That's the Way Love Goes was a bop.
Yeah.
Like, I can legit think about her leaning up against the wall column, billowy sheets flowing. And that signature. Okay, so how did this line, like a moth to a flame, burned by the fire, how did that line come up then, now that we're here?
That was a line,
right?
Because I just felt like there needed to be something said in the beginning, and we couldn't figure out what it was going to be. We had already done the whole song. And initially, Janet didn't like the track.
Really?
She didn't. When she first heard it, she didn't like it, and we were
Janet,
going.
I'm judging you.
And she was going on vacation. I remember we all loved it. We thought it was great. But when she was going on vacation, so I put it on a cassette along with all the other tracks. And if you remember the video where she's like, "Play the cassette," you know.
Yeah.
Well, that's kind of what happened on vacation. As the cassette is playing, that song came on, or just the track to it, because there was no song at that point. And I guess all the dancers and everybody who she was with all was like, wait, what is that? That's the one, right? So when she got back to L.A., I remember, or to Minneapolis, actually. When she got back to Minneapolis, she said, let's work on that song. And I said, which song? She said, this song. And I said, oh, the one you don't like? She said, no, I love it. But that's why she loved it, because her dancers basically A&R'd it and said, that's the one. So that's the kind of story with that. And then she was staying at my house at that point. And I remember at about 2 a.m, she gets on the intercom and she says, are you awake? And I said, I am now. She said, I got a concept for the song. That's the Way Love Goes. I said, okay, cool. So anyway, we do the whole song. We get it done. But we just needed a line. And I came up with that line. Like a moth to a flame burned by the fire. Wow. My love is blind. Can't you see it? My desire. Yeah. And then that just ended up being the song.
That has to be one of the most iconic lines, I think, in music, right? Because I don't think anybody was quoting that line until you guys did that. And it absolutely makes sense for how sensual that song is, because when things are sensual, it's addictive. Right? And then thus the moth next to flame, it's addictive.
Yes.
Like, you can't help but gravitate towards it. And you're attracted. And also, too, too much of a good thing can be a bad thing.
Yes,
right?
Exactly right.
Which is sometimes like
the metaphor.
The consequence of sensuality. Well, since we're at sensuality and you mentioned the dancers, I always thought that she always gave a nod to dancers with the song with Throb.
Yes.
So for me, Throb is a dancer song. Before I have a couple questions about Throb I've always wanted to know, but were the dancers in the room when Throb was being created? And audience, for those of you who are not Janet fans, over time, Google like Janet's dancers. Yes, audience, I'm looking directly at you. I'm breaking the plane here. They were celebrities unto themselves. I remember we would stand outside of the stadium and arenas that we were in and like stalk the tour bus just to meet the dancers. The dancers were famous. I think Janet is really what transformed dancers to become famous, right? And why we know dancers to this day. And folks, dancers were such a big part of Janet's performance. And Janet, for me, was one of the first to really allow her dancers time. Like, they all got individual shine in their moments in every concert. Like, I never miss a concert, as you can tell. And like, they really owned the stage. And I think is what made it so phenomenal as her dancers. And so that's why I'm asking questions
Yes.
about the dancers if you're not too familiar with the backstory. So were the dancers in the room, in the studio when
Yeah.
this was created?
Yes, they absolutely were. And I loved having the dancers around because as we were creating tracks, we knew right away if something was resonating with them. So yeah, no, they were around. If not all of them, but certainly Tina was around.
Yeah. The
for
guy from
sure.
Hawaii,
Shawnette was
Shawnette,
around.
yeah.
We loved that.
Was the Filipino guy, the Hawaiian guy? I forgot his name.
Oh, Gil.
Gil.
Yep.
Yeah.
Yeah, no, the dancers were always around, and we loved that because it gave us instant feedback. If a song was too slow, too fast, too whatever, we'd know right away. If they broke into a dance or started coming up with choreography for it, we knew they were inspired by it. And Throb was definitely that. They loved it. They couldn't stay. I remember they couldn't stay out of the room when we were doing it. Like it would be like we'd be trying to work on something.
Yeah.
And yeah, but it was great. But
This
yeah.
day is one of the most notable SNL performances.
Yes.
Throb.
Yes.
That's the one that still gets in rotation. That comes up, I think, almost every year with that one.
Yep, that's right.
Well, for me, I felt like Janet was actually stepping into her most sensual and sexual. Some would say Velvet Rope. I think Velvet Rope, she played with identity a little bit, but I think in Janet, she played with sexuality just in general. Like, what was that like? Did you guys have conversations about broken? Because Throb is very both lyrical, figurative, and metaphorical at
Yes,
the same
yes,
time.
Yeah. Well, we always had conversations, although I don't know whether it was specific conversations or more just where we knew where we were at in each other's lives at that point. Meaning that, I was in a very committed relationship at that point. She was in a very committed relationship, actually a secret. I don't think the secret marriage had quite happened yet. But
Renee.
Yeah, but with Renee. And so, and Terry was in a really, I think at that point, was a really good relationship also. So we were all three kind of in that loving, sensual relationship, and so it was very easy to talk about. It was very easy, not so much to talk about, but just to write about, because we were just in that mode. I remember the first song. The first song we did for the Janet album was "Tonight's the Night."
Really?
The remake of "Tonight's the Night," Rod Stewart,
Yeah.
because she always had loved that song.
Yeah.
And I said, when she mentioned it to me, I said, "Ooh, I know how to do that. I got the concept for that." And I remember that was the first one we did, and it was very sensual and very, it was very cool.
Yeah.
And so that kind of set the tone of what the album was going to be, which is why we knew it wasn't going to be, if it's sort of industrial sounding like Rhythm Nation was, but the rest of the album, if you listen to it, it's not really industrial. It's very warm. So I think that song really set the tone of what the album, because when that song turned out good, then we were like, okay, we need to just continue down this path.
So what was I going through in my childhood if I connected the Janet album like this? I need to have a conversation with myself and my parents. Like, wait, what was I going through? Like, if I was into so much of sensuality. So with that being said, I am. Excuse the pacing, Jimmy Jam. I'm just so excited. I've always wanted to do this discourse with you with Janet. I cannot believe I'm actually having this conversation with you about the Janet album, my favorite album. But I think this album redefined R&B. In particular, the song "Anytime, Any Place." Even Jonah, who's a Gen Z, recognizes that one. I always know, and my audience hears me say this, I always know when I'm hitting a lick with this, when a Gen Z, Jonah, how old are you, 22, 21, 24? When a 24-year-old begins to connect with this type of music, with "Anytime, Any Place." I just think that you're talking about sensuality, sultry voice, but still melodic. And still on key, and still being able to sing full out, but in a whisper. I think that really defined the whisper era of Janet too, as well. Talk to us about the creation of "Anytime, Any Place."
So "Anytime, Any Place" was really, I'll tell you what I was trying to do with that song was in the construction of the track of the song, before we even get to the vocals and stuff. I wanted it to sound like a band was playing it. And I'm basically playing all the instruments on it. Wow. So when you hear like a guitar lick, or you hear a bass, or you hear the piano, or you hear all these different little elements, it was basically like me in a band is what I was imagining. What would the guitar player play? What would the bass player play? What would, the keyboard player play? And because Terry, my partner, was, he was a band guy. I mean, we both obviously came from the time, so we were about in the band. And Terry would always say to me, if I played a lick, because I can't play guitar, so I would play a lick on the keyboard, right, as a guitar lick. And Terry would always go, guitar player wouldn't play it like that because he knew better, right? Or a bass player wouldn't play it like that. So what was great was I remember when I finished the track and I played it for Terry, he said, man, who's playing on this? And I said, I am. He said, no, but who's playing the guitar? Who's playing I said, I am. He said, no. Right? So the fact that I fooled him meant that I, first of all, pulled off. The first thing I wanted to do was make it sound like it was a band of musicians kind of playing. And that. When we gave it to Janet, we did not give her, I think we might have given her the anytime, any place, but that was it. The in the thunder and rain and all. Ooh, she did all that. Really? That was all her. That was all her. And I remember when she went in to do the demo of it, she said, I think I got something. And okay. And she goes in and does the demo and she sings that thing. I think a lot of that original demo is probably what we used for the actual vocal. Wow. Because it wasn't trying to be a performance. It was just her kind of sounding it out. And something about the way the energy of that was so cool to me. But yeah, what a great song. The other thing I'll say about that song, about Anytime, Any Place, was the fact that that became a single, because it was the fifth single from the Janet album.
That Janet had hits.
And what was interesting about it was the record company wanted to go in a different direction single-wise, because I think it was summertime, and they were like, oh, we got to do up-tempo. You know, it's all the analytics. Yeah. Got to do up-tempo, got to do up-tempo. And I remember we went to a meeting, and actually me and Renee went to the meeting. It was like a big marketing meeting, and they had all these statistics and that, and this should be the song, and this should be whatever. And we were like, Janet, I called Janet, and I just said, hey, everybody's going for these other songs. If you want Anytime, Any Place, why don't you come to the meeting, right? Mm-hmm. So she does. She walks in. They give her all the statistics, all this stuff, and she says, I want to thank everybody for all the work that you put into doing this. I feel like the single should be Anytime, Any Place. Mm-hmm. And there was a moment of silence. And then everybody goes, okay, cool. Anytime, any place. And then a guy named Phil Q, who's passed away, unfortunately. Phil Q was the guy that had to basically market the records and get them out there to people, right? And he kind of says under his breath, but we need an up-tempo. And I said, we'll do a B-side that'll be up-tempo. You'll be fine. Mm-hmm. And we did, and on and on. As an up-tempo. Wow. And that became a huge hit.
That was huge.
Huge. So we solved the problem, but it was the fact that she stuck to her guns and said, that should be the single. And when that record went, I think it was number 1 on the R&B charts for like 12 weeks or something.
It had
to I think it got to number 2 on the pop chart. It was a record so unlikely, kind of what you said. Mm-hmm. It was an unlikely record to be that big of a record across the board.
Yeah.
But she believed in it, and I love that. As you talked about earlier about the dancers and the way she featured them and all that. She stuck to her guns when she believed in something. And Terry and I were always right behind her. We were always like, let's go for it. If that's what you think, let's do it. Let's make it possible.
Even when you think about like the summertime, how that song is, I think is a good backdrop for summer. Mm-hmm. Like you think about summer nights.
Yeah.
Like summer nights, if you're in love, humidity,
yep.
It's hot. Right? Like
no, it makes all the sense.
So many babies are made in the summer.
Yes. but it makes sense if you live in that world. Like for us, you know, we're Quiet Storm Radio.
I was just about to say it's a Quiet Storm.
It's a Quiet Storm record. And those records, like it would always
be
like
Moments in Love.
Yes. Mm-hmm. And so you'd get the record and whatever the hit was, cool. But you know, black people, we're like, what's the ballad?
Yeah.
Right? We'd always try to find what the ballad was.
And we always ended a party slow dance.
Yes, exactly. And so that for us was what that was. And necessarily the people in the room who were white and male, for the most part.
Yeah.
That's not a diss. That's just what it was in the room.
It's not cultural for them.
It's not culture for them. So they have their analytics and why this should be the single in this. I understand that. That's where they're coming from. We just wanted them to understand where we were coming from. Mm-hmm. And, of course, Janet was able to articulate that better than we said the same thing. But coming from us, it's a different thing. Coming from her, Anytime, Any Place should be the single. It was the single. Deal done.
So, audience, Janet has 28 tracks on it. And so for me to unpack that would take at least over an hour. So I am angry at myself that I have to move on from this conversation because Jimmy's here actually talking about some of the dope stuff that he's doing. But Jimmy, will you promise we can do a part 2 to Janet?
Absolutely we can.
Okay, so I want to unpack that. And then the 5th time you come back again, I want to unpack Velvet Rope.
Okay. And
I think I'd like to do that around my birthday, around August the 3rd time period. And so if you want to bring a special guest to drop into the studio to unpack it with me, wink, wink.
Okay.
I am more than happy to be surprised for my birthday on August the 3rd. If you ever want to unpack the velvet rope with any special guest.
Ah.
As a birth, I never asked you for a birthday gift ever in
That
my
is true.
life.
That
and,
is true.
And I never want to ask you for a birthday gift again. If you just, again,
You're not really asking. You're more suggesting.
However you take it. You know what I mean? Whatever the analytics tell you.
Yes,
Jimmy.
exactly. Yes, whatever they do.
Whatever analytics tell you. But there was always, I never even asked him for that. But since we're here. I'm also too intrigued because Jimmy J, but I tell you, you had me in a chokehold. I used to be that guy who would go on Tuesdays. Remember those days?
Yes.
So I guess on Monday nights around midnight, I would go to Warehouse Records.
That's right.
Or Tower Records. And I think even though you can appreciate this being the Midwest guy, I would go to Myers because Myers is open 24 hours.
That's right.
And I would go to get these albums.
Yes.
And I will always wonder if you were going to do a hidden album or hidden track.
Hidden track, yeah.
The bonus track. Tell me about the strategy. Because I think you guys are doing gamification of music in the ways that we see gamification artists doing on concerts and tours with these bonus hidden tracks. And whoops now, what's a hidden track to this one? Talk to me about how y'all had me to choke for that one. Why did y'all do that to me?
So whoops now, we just wanted to have something that was... We just like the idea of that kind of music, kind of that 60s... I don't know if it was Mamas and Papas or what it was. Yeah. But it was just that kind of, it was sort of like feeling groovy and kind of like that kind of thing, like the kind of thing, or almost a Motown-y type thing. It kind of had all those elements. There was nowhere it fit in the tracking of the album, in the sequencing of the album. It didn't fit. It jarred what we were trying to do at every point. But we still loved the song. And in the particular, the UK, I think they had heard a version of the album or some of the songs and loved that song. They were like, oh no, in the UK, this is our single, right? We're going for this. So I think we thought, let's do it as a hidden track, which you could do in those days because now the playing times had gotten longer with CDs and all that stuff. And so we just did it as a hidden track, as a bonus track. And it's funny because in the UK, I think she started doing the song now sometimes in the US, but in the UK, and in other countries around the world, Whoops Now was a huge record, and she does it in concert. And
you guys the only ones who did the bonus track, the hidden tracks? I don't remember.
I think there were other people. I think other people were doing hidden tracks, and some people were. I remember when we go to mastering, which is always like the last part of putting the records together. Somebody told me that somebody had done a hidden track where when you put the CD in, you went backwards 2 things. And it was before the actual album started.
I remember doing that.
Track.
Yeah. I remember doing that.
So sometimes they would get hidden like that.
Yeah.
But we just like the idea of it. And once again, like I say, because it didn't fit into what it was, we did the same thing on Velvet Rope with Can't Be Stopped.
Oh, yeah. You guys did.
As a hidden track.
That's what I'm saying. Yeah. You guys have me to chokehold. Yeah. Okay, audience, let's talk what Jimmy Jam wants to talk about.
No, I'm fine talking about whatever you want to talk about.
I do want to come back maybe post Grammys because I do love the idea of what you guys do in the Black Music Action Coalition with the annual Makers Grants. And I was there at the Jimmy Jam and Terry Lewis celebration last year in LA when I got a chance to see you guys give out these grants to these inspiring songwriters and audience. When they handed out these grants, these songwriters in the room just lit up, and you just knew their lives were forever changed. And that's such a special moment.
The music that those young ladies have made in the past year is amazing.
Oh, so you know what we'll do then, Jimmy? We'll come back with them.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah,
we should do that.
I mean, you're basically my unofficial co-host at this point.
Okay, perfect.
This is the Mike Muse Show and Jimmy Jam.
But
I couldn't be more honored to have that. But I would love that because I do want to talk about the importance of giving back.
Yes.
And the importance of
it's very important.
Changing people's lives and mentorship in that. And Johnny is cutting me so many bad looks to wrap this interview, but I don't care.
Yeah.
Because my birthday's coming up, August 3rd, Jimmy Jam.
I love it. It's coming up August 3rd. I love it.
But I do want to end with you discussing one of your current tracks was the documentary. And I think it's really important, Gamble and Huff, because this has been such a musical-based conversation.
Yep.
Those two, that collection, the gentleman, really defined the Philadelphia sound.
Totally.
So if you can just really talk to me about why it was important for you to uplift these individuals and the Philadelphia sound.
Well, I think storytelling is...
And now I release you.
Okay, well, I think storytelling is an important part of what's going on. And for us... for me and Terry, really the Philadelphia sound was the sound that really raised us. It made us want to write songs. And so the way it's kind of evolved is that there's a Jam and Lewis documentary that's being done with a gentleman named Peter Afterman. And Peter, in the making of our Jam and Lewis documentary, just said, who should make a documentary, or who should be in a documentary that you haven't seen? And we said, actually, the Mighty Three. We said Gamble Huff and Tom Bell, who was part of that collective. And he said, why? And I said, because there's no us without them.
Wow.
And he said, wow, that's interesting. So what we did was we ended up going to Philadelphia and actually meeting with them to talk about kind of the prospect of doing that. It's not really an announcement that we're doing it, but it's more of a, we want to do it. And how do they feel about it? And how does Tom Bell's estate feel about it? And the other people that would have to be involved in getting something like that done. And that's sort of where we're at this point. But we've met with them, had a great conversation, filmed a great musical conversation with them, with, Huff at a piano, me at a piano, and it's just one of those things that we just feel it's a story that needs to be told.
Yeah.
And we just want to make sure we're the best people to tell it. We feel we are,
Yeah.
but we want everybody to feel that way.
I love that.
So,
Jimmy Jam, as you were talking, I was just thinking to myself that I just created a new segment for us, Story Time with Jimmy Jam on the Mike Muse Show. And
Once upon a time.
Yeah, and I'm going to take this on the road because audience, what I do know about Jimmy Jam is that he is you're an incredible storyteller, which makes sense why you're an incredible writer, producer, musician, all the things of a savant that you are. But you just have a passion for this, and it comes out in your stories. Like, I've heard the Scream conversation. I've heard other stories, and I'm still in awe as if it's the first time listening to it.
Oh, thank you.
And I never want to take for granted that I never want to take for granted our friendship to get in the way of the reminder of the genius that you are musically, artistically. So although we're incredible, great friends, I still always want to remind sometimes myself, like, I'm walking with a genius, right? And so cheers to all the musical gifts that you've given us.
Thank you.
And you gave us great party music. So many kids are in this earth now because of you. And so I guess he really is a father to many sons, right, Jonah? Yeah.
So. There we go.
There was that gospel song, Father Abraham is now Father Jimmy Jam. Jimmy Jam, you have fun, man.
Thank you, man.
Yeah.
The best.
Until next time, folks.
Yes,
Peace.
Oh